The debate over early childhood education and whether to include it in our public school system is not a new phenomenon. Researchers in education have been writing about the worth of removing children from at-risk environments and exposing them to educational environments. Unfortunately, the Department of Education has been debating its cost-effectiveness since the 1800s. Several decades of research clearly demonstrate that by exposing children to good educational practices before the age of 5, they are more likely to become successful as they reach adulthood. It has been stated that by exposing all children to early childhood programs where every child is exposed to quality, developmentally appropriate education, we can eliminate many of the problems that are facing our middle and high school students today, such as dropouts, drug abuse, and teen pregnancy. We can in fact break that cycle of poverty, bridge that gap of have and have not, and produce a nation of successful schools and children. When Lyndon Johnson resumed the presidency after the tragic death of John F. Kennedy on November 22, 1963, he inherited a full-blown attack on poverty. Johnson, who had previously been a teacher, welcomed the major educational emphasis on the war on poverty, which was to become a major part of his 1964 presidential program. The Economic Opportunity Act of 1964, the establishment of local, nonprofit, anti-poverty programs such as the Community Action Program, and subsequently in 1965, the Elementary and Secondary Act, funneled $1 billion to almost every school in the country to pay for special programs for children from low-income families. Lyndon Johnson described this move as the giant stride toward full educational opportunity for all of our school children. It will help 5 million children of poor families over their greatest barrier to progress, poverty. 1965, Sergeant Shriver, then director of the Office of Economic Opportunity, decided to spend the remaining allocation of the CAP's budget on a preschool program for poor children. In August of that same year, the Economic Opportunity Act was signed into law. Shriver, as head of War on Poverty Task Force, with the president's wife, formed a steering committee and launched the first ever Head Start project. The idea was to help break the cycle of poverty by providing preschool children of low-income families with a comprehensive program to meet their emotional, social, health, nutritional, and psychological needs. The belief was that if we can reach these children at a young enough age, give them a head start at school, build self-esteem, break a cycle of poverty, we can hopefully create a successful career path. But much heated debate ensued between the members of CAP and the steering committee regarding how much control the poor would have over the program. Initially, Head Start aimed at giving parents and the community opportunity to be able to participate in the nurturing and education of their children. In its early years, the program showed considerable progress as a community action effort. But, unfortunately, the steering committee and the CAP personnel could not agree on how the program should be run. There were many conflicts over who would be responsible for what. By the time Richard Nixon took over the presidency, he was planning to eliminate Head Start and all of its problems, but persuaded by Edgar Ziegler, director of the Office of Child Development, he told him that this was not a good decision. Project Follow Through began in 1967 under the direction of the Department of Education. The purpose of this program was to expand Head Start services into elementary schools, but unfortunately, once again, due to budget deficits, lack of program goals, and the fact that it grew too fast without any clear direction meant that it was doomed to failure. However, it did manage to survive some degree in the 1990s. For 35 years, the Head Start Early Childhood Program has met the needs of children, families, and the community it serves. It continuously evolving and expanding to meet the changing needs of families and children. The federal government is not alone in promoting early childhood programs. The state and local governments, communities and parents, and the private sector are all part of this system to promote more early childhood programs. Unfortunately, most of these programs have been underfunded. With each new president came positive additions to the program, which by 1984 was serving over 9 million children. Say, under Nixon, handicapped children were included. General Ford included performance standards. Jimmy Carter added bilingual and bicultural migrant programs. Ronald Reagan expanded the budget to exceed by $1 billion. George Bush increasing funding by $600 million, and with his No Child Left Behind mandates added standards for preschools. While Bill Clinton extended services to children aged birth to 3 years old, pregnant women, and from part day to full day. By this time, the conversation had turned from whether early childhood programs were an asset to which program had the greatest long-term effect. Despite the acceptance of the early childhood and successful, much of the 1990s and 2000s have been spent debating the issue of developmentally appropriate practices. Researchers have shown unequivocally that these programs make a significant difference in the lives of children, families, and communities. The children are better prepared to learn, have higher self-esteem and social skills. The National Association for the Education of Young Children has in their October report 2003 stated, "We can invest now in our children and families and enjoy long-term savings. With a more vibrant nation of healthy, achieving children and a more stable family. Or we can fail to make the investment and pay the price. Increased delinquency, greater educational failures, lower productivity, less economic competitiveness, and fewer adults prepared to be effective, loving parents to the next generation of children." The National Institute of Mental Health has stated that most educators and early childhood specialists agree that the early years are a critical time to become preventing achievement gaps. Early delays are quickly magnified as these children move through the early grades and become more likely to score lower on tests such as reading, math, and receiving special education, repeated school grades, and being diagnosed with mental retardation and learning disabilities than children of more affluent families. Research has clearly shown that the higher educational level of the teacher, the better quality of delivery. It also helps to narrow the salary gap and hopefully help retain good teachers. This, of course, requires funding, which has been sadly lacking. Several decades of research clearly demonstrate that high-quality, developmentally appropriate early childhood programs produce short and long-term positive effects on children's cognitive and social development. Especially, children who experience high-quality, stable child care engage in more complex play, demonstrate more secure attachment to adults and other children, and score higher on measures of thinking ability and language development. High-quality child care can predict academic success, adjustment to school, and reduce behavioral problems for children in the first grade. Studies demonstrate that children's success or failures during the first years of school often predicts the courses of later schooling. A growing body of research indicates that more developmentally appropriate teaching in preschools and kindergarten predicts greater success in the earlier grades. The three most notable studies are the Cost, Quality, and Outcome Study, the Abecedarian Project, and the NICHD Study of Early Child Care. All present positive findings on the impact of early childhood education programs on children's success. The one thing that these projects have established is that they are all successful, whether for short or long term. They all show that children are better prepared to learn, have higher self-esteem and social behavior. The children show positive school achievement and motivation. The programs all show positive effects of parents and communities, and they help determine how long our children stay in school and are productive. It is clear that we all must work together to build a successful future for our children. While earlier childhood development is clearly a strong determining factor in the success of our children's education, it has been unfortunately poorly financed by a hodgepodge of government, parent, and private sector resources. It is apparent that an equitable system needs to be funded and finance early childhood education adequately. While our previous presidents have issued legislative targeting early childhood education to combat poverty, they have not always provided adequate funding to support such programs. We can only hope that with the present economic crisis, our next president will follow through with his pre-election rhetoric and providing necessary funding to support a program for all children that we know works and can help our youngest at-risk population to be successful when they reach high school. Thank you.